Hey y'all, I'm your host, Kennedy Brady. That's Kennedy like the president and Brady like the bunch, but since we're friends, you can call me Ken, just like the Barbie. And this is Ken Ray B. All right, before we even start this episode, I need to make a public service announcement. It has been brought to my attention that several of my listeners think my accent is fake. Guys, I don't know how to tell you this other than to say it's all natural. Okay. I actually thought that I was doing really good last episode by toning it down, but apparently not. Just to give you a little insight, my sister and I spent a lot of time with my great grandparents between the ages of like 0 to 5. You know, those crucial developmental years when young kids learn to speak. So basically, Elliot, that's my sister, and I have the southern accent of an 80-year-old woman. And if you thought mine was bad, good luck understanding a word she says when she makes a guest appearance on this podcast. Speaking of childhoods and years gone by, have any of y'all ever had this pesky little issue of living in the past? I know I have. It hits me in waves. I mean, sometimes, honestly, I wish I could go back and relive high school and maybe be a little more mischievous and a little less goody two shoes. I wish I could go back and relive college because I went during COVID and that absolutely sucked. In fact, if I could go back, I probably would have taken a gap year, or maybe I never even would have gone at all. Actually, maybe not, because we did end up getting first place in that ethics competition against Georgetown and Penn State, might I add. I wish that I could go back and start this podcast before Dr. Boyd passed away. About a year after we won the competition, Dr. Boyd passed away in a car accident. We were the last team that he ever got to coach. I've always wondered what he would have thought about all this, and I wouldn't have to wonder if I hadn't been so fearful and just started this thing. I wish I could go back a couple years and tell myself to not let fear outweigh passion. I mean, this podcast would have come out in 2024 if that was the case. I wish I could go back and maybe not date that one guy. And if I'm being really honest, I wish I could go back and actually listen to my mom a little more often. Do not tell her I said that. I wish I could go back and be a better big sister. I wish I could do things differently. I wish I could rewind. You know, we all have those moments that we wish we could either go back and relive or go back and change. The truth is that we can look back at our lives all we want, but we can't change anything in the past. It is what it is. The hard truth is that even something as seemingly simple as looking backwards can have some pretty rough consequences. I mean, just ask Lot's wife. Oh, wait, you can't. She's a pillar of salt. In case you have little ears in the room or you don't want to hear me rambling on about some sensitive topics, this episode will contain content that includes sexual assault and rape. Remember last episode, I briefly mentioned a guy named Abraham? Abraham was the guy God made the OG covenant with. You know, the whole I'll make a great nation out of your descendants and I'll give you some really nice land for everybody to live in too. Abraham had a nephew named Lot that had been traveling with Abraham and his family the whole time. Abraham and Lot, however, had to split up. Both of their herds and encampments had grown to be huge, and this land just wasn't big enough for the both of them. Lot decided to pitch his tent near Sodom. Now, not too long after Lot moved into this rather wicked town, war broke out. Lot and his family and all of his possessions were captured by the enemies of Sodom and the neighboring town of Gomorrah. Abraham takes 318 men and rescues Lot and literally everything that belonged to him. They got it all back. Even after living through a war and being captured during it, Lot decides he's just going to keep Livin right in Sodom. In Genesis 18, God is preparing to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. If there's one thing you need to know about God in the Old Testament, it's that his justice is like a swift kick to the hind end. It can be really intense, and it sure was in the case of Sodom and Gomorrah. These cities were abounding in wickedness across the board. The townsfolk were inhospitable, arrogant, violent, and immoral. Yes, I do mean sexually immoral, but immoral in other ways too. God pulled the whole, I'm going to count to three, and if y'all don't calm down, I'm whooping y'all. One, two, two and a half, three. Oh, that's it. God lets Abraham in on the plan, and Abraham is like, oh, crap. That's where Lot is. And Abraham tried to do something I'm sure we've all tried to do once or twice. He tries to bargain with God. He's all, "Well, God, what if there's 50 righteous people there? I mean, would you destroy it then?" And God's all, "Nah, dude, not if there's 50 of them." But then Abraham starts thinking a little harder about who all's in Sodom and Gomorrah. And he's like, okay. But like, what about 45? And God's all, I mean, nah, I guess not. If there's 45 people, I guess I'll chill. The longer Abraham thinks, the more he's like, oh, gum, this city's going to get wiped out, isn't it? So Abraham whittles his way down the list. Well, what about 40? What about 30? Wait, God, what about 20? How about 10? Is 10 enough? Every time God's like, you know what? Sure, Abraham. If there are 40, no. 30, wait. 20, no, actually 10. If there are literally 10 righteous people, I won't destroy a thing. Well, guess what? There were not even 10 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah. And God knew that the whole time. Actually, I think Abraham kind of knew it too, or else he wouldn't have bargained so hard. Not only did God know that there weren't 10 righteous people, but he also knew the real reason Abraham was freaking out so bad was because his nephew Lot was living in that neck of the woods. So God in Genesis 19 sends two angels to rescue Lot and his family from the impending doom he's about to rain down on Sodom and Gomorrah. It's important to note that Lot is I can never say this word. That Lot is a sojourner. You know what? He's a traveler, okay? He's a foreigner. He's an outsider. I can't, sojourner? Sojourner. Uh, you know what? This fake accent, I can't speak right. Anyway, keep that in mind for later. This guy is a traveler, an outsider, a foreigner. When these two angels waltz into town, Lot begs them to stay at his crib for the night, but they decline, telling him that they're just going to rough it in the town square. But Lot really presses them, and they end up saying yes to his offer for a slumber party. Woo! Pillow fight time. Lot makes a feast with unleavened bread, and for a while, it seems like everyone is having an okay time. That is until bang, bang, bang. Lot and his family feel the whole house shake as someone pounds on the door. Every single man that lives in the town, young and old, have surrounded his house. They formed a mosh pit around the house, and they're screaming at Lot from outside, "Bro, where are the dudes you were with today? Bring them out so we can have sex with them." But, like, not in a gay way, though. You might be thinking, Kennedy, what in the world is going on here? Well, Lot at first was trying to do the right and hospitable thing by making sure that these two angels had a place to stay for the night. But remember, Sodom and Gomorrah was an extremely inhospitable place, and Lot was already a foreigner to them. Lot's hospitality as an outsider might as well have been blasphemy to them and their culture. Who was he to offer shelter to these people? I mean, to have, quote, mean girls, he doesn't even go here. Rape of this nature was typically used to assert dominance over and humiliate strangers or foreigners or those who were seen as inferior. So it wasn't necessarily that all these men had the hots for the angels, but that they really wanted to prove that they were more powerful than them and more powerful than their host, Lot, who was supposed to protect and shelter them. So Lot is literally begging these men to chill out and go home. I can only imagine how he must have been scrambling around his house trying to figure out what to do with not only his family, but these two guests who, again, literally happen to be angels. Now, what Lot does next, in my opinion, is indefensible. Lot cracks open the door and calls out to the swarm of men surrounding his house and goes, "You know what, guys? My daughters are virgins. What if I gave you the two of them instead? Just don't hurt these men because they're under my roof and I don't want them to leave a bad Google review." Like, I get that obviously this is a horrible situation for his household to be in, but this makes me livid. You're going to offer up your two daughters to be gang raped? Are you kidding me, Lot? Can we not, I don't know, can we not pray about this first? Or I don't know, ask the literal angels in your house for help? You are actually in the midst of literal God sent angels, and you think that you, as a pea brain, snotty nosed human, can work your way out of this? Think, Lot. Good grief. I'm sorry. I need to calm down. I mean, it's not like I'm not guilty too here. No, I haven't offered up any of my daughters to be assaulted, but we do this every day, you know? Instead of turning to God first, we make a really rash and really harmful decision to try to escape whatever current situation that we're in. Anyway, this obviously was the wrong thing to say to the crowd. You think you can tell us what to do? You, the foreigner? Who are you? Judge Judy? If you want to play that game, we'll deal with you even worse than the two guys in your house right now. The whole crowd presses against the house and tries to break the door down. Lot, at this point, is still right behind the door, but luckily for him, two angels grab him away from the door and shut it. Then the angel struck all of the men outside with blindness. The men still don't stop, though. They, and I quote, wore themselves out, groping for the door. The angels look at Lot and they're like, now's the time to head out, big guy. This place is about to get wrecked, per the Lord. So who's leaving with us? So Lot goes and gets his soon to be son in laws and tells them it's time to pack up and hit the road. Yeah, did I not mention that the daughters that Lot wanted to offer up to the horde of men were engaged? Yeah, but these two guys think that their father in law is just messing around about how bad the situation is because, sure, yeah, the part where he offered up your fiancés to dozens of men was just a huge joke. These two roll back over in bed and ask Lot to turn out the lights as he leaves, and they do not join the move out crew. If there's one thing you need to know about Lot, it's that this guy loves to linger. He's pacing around all night trying to figure out what to do. At this point, the sun is starting to come up and shine, and the angels tell Lot that he needs to be moving double time. But Lot's a lingerer. We're not given a reason as to why, just that he lingers too long. If I had to guess, I would say maybe he's still trying to figure out a way that he himself can fix this, instead of just taking the out that God is giving him. It's a good thing God is merciful. The angels grab a hold of everybody in the household and swoosh them to safety outside the city. The angels tell him to run for the hills. Literally, the hill country is right outside the city. They also tell Lot and his family that they are not to look back at the place from which they came, and they are not supposed to make any pit stops on the escape route. Lot, ever the city slicker, asks if they can please escape to a small city called Zoar instead of the wilderness, and that request is granted. So God rains fire and sulfur, aka brimstone, down from the heaven on Sodom and Gomorrah, effectively destroying the cities and all their inhabitants. Missiles are coming down from the sky, buildings are blowing up and burning. Those who haven't died by inhaling burning sulfur are screaming, and thick black smoke is rising toward the sky. And Lot's wife? As she's following Lot toward God promised safety, she looks back against God's instructions at all the destruction, and she turns into a pillar of salt. Personally, I like to think that she turned into pink Himalayan salt, but really, she could have turned into any kind: table salt, rock salt, bath salts. We just don't know. I've always wondered why Lot's wife looked back. I just, I don't know. It's just never set well with me. I've always heard it talked about in a way that she looked back longingly for the life she once had. But I don't get that. We're talking about a life where they were the foreigners slash outsiders among their neighbors who hated them. A life in which her husband offers up her two virgin daughters to be assaulted by countless men. A life where she has to be rescued by God because that is the literal one and only shot out of this horrible situation. Last spring, though, I think I finally saw a different side to Lot's wife's motives. I was running my first ever half marathon, which is around 13 miles. There were probably around 200 people running, give or take. And there I was, looking like I knew what I was doing in my little matching Aerie sports bra and my biker shorts and my highlighter yellow running socks and my matching neon yellow fanny pack and the slickest slick back bun you'd ever seen in your life. And about 3 miles in, I'm passing people, people are passing me, and I have no clue what place I'm in. A few people pass me, and I need to pick me up. But it's too soon for water, and it's too soon for runner goo, which is like, it's like these little sugar goo packs that you eat while you run. Side note, I think they're delicious. Anyway, I decide maybe my pick me up can be a little ego boost. I'm just going to look back and see how many people are behind me. So I start to turn my head and my shoulders back, but I get a really strong conviction to stop what I'm doing. Like, it almost feels like there are two hands that grab my head and turn my head back forward to the race that I have yet to run. And I hear this very clear voice in my head that says, "Remember Lot's wife." And I'm confused. I'm not looking back at the start of the race where I came from like she was. I was simply trying to make myself feel better by measuring myself against everybody else. And mile after mile, step after step, I just kept hearing, "Remember Lot's wife, remember Lot's wife, remember Lot's wife." During the race, I figured this was more of like a physical command, like just don't turn your head around. And I will say, that makes sense. Even that slight, almost glance back used up energy I would need for the rest of the race. For a couple steps, it altered my breathing, it twisted my core, and it changed my focus, which changed my pace. So throughout the race, I thought that God just didn't want me to lose steam by physically turning around. And that may be true, but the longer I sit with that experience, the more I understand Lot's wife. I wasn't longing for the start of the line or wishing I could go back there. No, what I was focused on was how many people I was ahead of, how many people I was doing better than. It wasn't some sorrowful, "Gosh, I just love the starting line and I miss it and I wish I was back there again." It was a prideful, "Doesn't it feel good to be doing better than those guys? Look how far away I am from where I was and look at all the people I'm ahead of." And now it clicks for me. Maybe Lot's wife looking back was a pride thing. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't care to admit that. Maybe she really was sad to leave the life she knew behind, no matter how corrupt the town was or how miserable life was. I've been there too. Typically, I feel like this used to happen to me around a breakup, and guess what? Breakups happen for a reason. And a lot of the times, it's because things are going badly. And it doesn't matter who you are. Admit it. Everyone gets sad when a relationship ends, whether you're the dumper or the dumpy. You tend to have a lot of hope for what a relationship could be. Take it from me, the hopeless romantic of my family who only sees everyone's greatest potential. You get to have a good routine with somebody, the good morning text, the heart emojis, the date nights, the hand to hold. And then when you go through a breakup, you miss that routine. And in hindsight, just like the towns of Sodom and Gomorrah were corrupt, the relationship was pretty toxic too. But it doesn't stop you from trying to only remember the good and dwell in the past. You could have had 364 bad days, but the second the breakup happens, you choose to only remember that one good day y'all had. Isn't it funny how we romanticize the past so much that we ignore reality? Maybe that's what was happening in Lot's wife's mind. Who cares about the awful neighbors and the fact that it never really felt like home? She had memories there. She had a routine there. She had a life there, even if it wasn't God's best for her. And even on top of that, it could have been a guilt thing. My mom actually has to tell me all the time to stop looking back like Lot's wife because every time God does something good in my life, the only things I think about are the mistakes I've made, how small and horrible they made me feel, and how I don't feel like I deserved grace or mercy in that moment. Maybe that's what Lot's wife was doing. She was feeling some kind of survivor's guilt because she believed she didn't deserve rescue. She decided that instead of shedding the shame and moving forward, she would look backwards and live in it because that's what she felt like she deserved. I get it. There have been nights I was so stuck in my past that I wish the sun would have just never come up. I've missed opportunities and blessings because I've let shame tower over me. I've wrestled with God because even though He had forgiven me, I couldn't forgive myself. Maybe she was in the same boat. She lived there. Wasn't she as awful as them? Why would God choose to rescue her and her family? Why was she getting the mercy of a rescue when countless others didn't? I don't blame her for not being able to wrap her head around it. What's crazy is that, sure, salt is used to flavor things, but it's also used to stop the spread of decay. So it's no coincidence that Lot's wife gets turned into a giant salt shaker. Lot's family was told not to turn around, whether that be out of pride, sorrow, or guilt, it doesn't matter. If one person turns around, what's to stop Lot and his daughters from taking a peek behind them too? There's a reason that so many verses in Proverbs tell you to watch who you hang around. Literally, Proverbs 13:20 says, "He who walks with the wise will become wise, but the companions of fools will suffer." You know what's wise? Not looking backwards when God specifically tells you not to turn around. You know what's kind of foolish? Turning around after you've gotten specific instructions not to do that. And you know who you are? You are who you hang around. So who's it going to be? The person looking ahead or the person looking back? God, in this very literal way, stops the spread of decay that comes through sin with salt. So maybe you're in Lot's wife's shoes. Maybe there's a situation you're being brought out of, whether it's moving or a relationship or career change, or whatever it may be. Maybe you have the urge to look over your shoulder at what was, whether that's in a prideful, thank God I'm not one of those losers kind of way, or in a sorrowful, what would I give to be back there kind of way, or even in a guilty, I don't deserve this and I don't deserve to live anywhere but the past kind of way. Regardless, all looking back does is take your eyes off the route that God has clearly made for you. So remember Lot's wife and don't look back. Don't live in the past when you have God's grace and God's mercy covering you. You can find Ken Ray B on Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts at Ken Ray B. You can find me on Facebook under my name, Kennedy Brady. If reading is more your style, you can find me on Substack at, you guessed it, Ken Ray B. Thanks for listening.